But oh, you beauty! What a head, son! What a head!
Welcome back to Onto the Ball. I'm your host, Scott Nico, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Travis Morgan. Massive news today, Travis. Mason Greenwood is leaving Manchester United. What can you say about this? The only thing I can think of, obviously, you've got to be careful what you say. There's all different angles, which we don't want to get too deep into it, but there's no winners here. It's only losers. It's all losers. Mason Greenwood's a loser. Man United are losers. Mason Greenwood's now fiance is a loser. What a horrendous episode, and what a conclusion that comes after the club tested the water by releasing that they're preparing for his return and integration back to the Manchester United squad, and it did not go down well with sponsors, with female fans, with human rights groups. It's just horrendous.
Yeah, a mess from start to finish, really. I think ultimately, from a personal standpoint, the club have sort of made the right decision. They have made the right decision. They've come to the right decision. I think it was going to be more effort for what it was worth. I don't think his position became untenable as soon as the charges were dropped and the public opinion was the way it was. I don't think there was really any way back for him from a personal standpoint. But I think the club have not covered themselves in any sort of glory at all with how they've handled the situation. And it's just another display of the Glazers and the people underneath's competence in terms of handling situations at this football club. What
do you think they could have done better in hindsight?
Putting it to bed quickly. I think if the club if the club didn't think that there was going to be this sort of public reaction to the charges being dropped and an investigation taking place, then they've been living in a box for the last 20 years if they didn't think people were going to react in the fashion that they've reacted. I think if you're going to make a decision and you're basing it on what you're saying is fact, then stick to that fact. Like the statement that's been released is very, very conflicting all the way through. They've said that Mason isn't guilty of what he's been charged of, but based on the difficulty on recommencing his re-employment, they've now decided to U-turn on their original decision, which is what in effect they're saying now. Obviously, you've got the duty of care to the alleged victim, and that's the most important person in this scenario. But I think not necessarily from a sporting perspective, but just so many people's lives have been affected by it. Obviously, the family, Mason, you've got the sporting perspective with Ten Hag. And I think dragging this process out and going from pillar to post and changing your decision from one decision to another, I don't think that does anybody any favors. Speaking purely from a sporting perspective, United probably would have planned to have him back involved in the squad. Now Ten Hag probably feels he's short of resources. That's purely from a selfish sporting perspective. Then you've got Mason, who probably feels he said that he's made mistakes in his own statement, which he has done. I think that's categorically obvious to everybody. Does he feel those mistakes were too much to rehabilitate from? I can't answer that question. I don't know. I don't know about bringing his contract into disrepute, so I'm not going to go into it. But I think there's so many people involved, and I think from going till February until this point in the season has just not done anybody any favors. I understand from February until May, until the season finished, he was never going to come back at the back end of last season and walk straight into the team after what had happened 18 months previous. But to not clear it up within the first couple of weeks of the season, of the new season, is just catastrophic. And the public opinion was always going to stand. I mean, the announcement's been made today, and all you're hearing is that they feel that the club have lied all the way through this statement, and they still believe Mason's guilty of something. So what difference has that investigation made? It's not made any difference to anyone. If they were going to base the decision on pure public opinion only, which is what they've done. They've made a U-turn on the decision. I wasn't very invested in the case from the point the charges were dropped. I knew this was how it was going to pan out. I didn't think he was in a position where he could come back. I thought it was untenable from that point. And again, like I said, I think it's been dealt with in a very messy manner, and the club haven't covered themselves in glory at all.
It's clear that obviously the long-term aim from the club in an ideal situation was to integrate him back into the squad.
Yeah.
At what points and what thinking was that ever going to wash? Because everyone from looking from the outside in thought he's, like you just said, it's untenable. He cannot come back into this squad.
Yeah.
From what points, and I know they're not your points, but if you can put yourself in the director's shoes, at what, how was he ever going to come back into the squad? Were they prepared to take a bit of flack, do you think, and a bit of negative press and hope that it blew over after a month or two?
Well, it's pretty obvious that they weren't, and they probably felt they couldn't, hence why they've come to this decision now. But I think the only thinking I can think is that the mistakes that Mason's made, which isn't public, they probably felt that they could rehabilitate it and weighed up his talent and his age against what mistakes they felt he's made, and probably felt that they could not sweep it under the carpet, but they probably felt that they could get the public opinion on side and take all those other factors into consideration when making a decision. And that's the route they've probably tried to go down. I don't agree with it. I don't think, and they've not been successful in doing that. If anything, the statements made it worse, because what they've said is like, all the charges that have been made, Mason hasn't done any of that, but we're just going to release him anyway because like the public kicked off and sections of the public kicked off. I think it was a very divisive situation. I think there were people that felt that he deserved a chance in some capacity. I think there were big sections of fans and public domains that felt he didn't deserve to play for Manchester United again. And it is what it is. I think that the decision's been made now. I think ultimately the public will be happy with the decision that's made. I think Manchester United will probably feel that it's a problem that's been pushed to the side with all the other problems, and they probably feel that they've got bigger fish to fry in terms of the football, focusing back on the season. And it's become more of a distraction than the club probably wanted it to become, but it was always going to be huge news with the evidence that went into the public domain. There's just something I don't trust about the statement. I don't think he's fully gone from the club yet. It doesn't feel like that his contract's been terminated to me. It still seems like it's a little bit up in the air. And I think what they're trying to do is sort of let the dust settle a little bit, support him and his family with what's going on, and then sort of go from there. So I don't know what the next steps are. So that's the way I'm viewing it at the moment.
That's what I was going to say to you. I don't even think this is the end of it. Obviously, I've titled the video "Man United Release Mason Greenwood," but it's not going to be as simple as that, is it? They can't just cancel his contract because it's got legal rights to wages, etc. But also, do you think Man United are still going to be ideally looking to get a fee for him to sell him overseas or something? Because even that would attract negative press, wouldn't it? If Man United all of a sudden it gets released, he can leave, or we want him to leave, but they're pricing him out of a move. They want 30, 40 million. It can still turn even uglier, can't it?
I'm not sure if it can turn uglier than it is now. I think unless he is brought back into Manchester United, I think that could cause quite a big reaction. Like if let's say if he's loaned out and he's brought back next season, that could potentially be a scenario that like if United play the card that he's a changed man and stuff like that, and he's rehabilitated and he's gone away for a year and he's improved as a person, he's a family man now, then he comes back into the team, that could potentially cause some sections of the public domain to react in the way that it has reacted now. In terms of getting worse, I'm not sure. It could potentially get worse. Like I said, they're giving that example of a scenario that could potentially make it worse.
But I mean, like from Mason Greenwood, he might be feeling aggrieved at his treatment by Manchester United. He might feel that they've abandoned him when he needed them most and he wanted them to stand by him. And then on the back of that, let's say they are trying to engineer a move for him. Like what I'm getting at is they could price him out of a move and say, look, he's an England international. He's at the start of his career. He's only 21. He's obviously a massive talent. We want kind of 40 million, and it could turn ugly that way. So he's not good enough for Man United. He's not playing for us ever again. We've released a statement saying that, but now you're going to price him out of a move. Basically, I can only see him leaving on a free.
I just don't see the advantages of doing that as a football club. Like, if you don't want the player, you don't want the player. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it comes down to morality and the reason you're getting rid of him is because he's tarnishing the image of the club and he's affecting the club in a negative way, I don't understand why you wouldn't do everything within your sort of best interest to get rid of the player if that's how you feel as a football club, which leads me to think that I don't trust the statement that's been released 100%. I think there's just more than what meets the eye. I think there's something underlying here. I don't think this is a closed book at all.
In terms of what? Can you allude on that? What don't you trust? What could be different to what they've kind of released, which is pretty much they've said he'll never play for Manchester United ever again. Doesn't say much more than that.
I don't think they've said that he won't play for United ever again. I think what they've said in the statement is that he'll rebuild his career away from Manchester United. That doesn't mean he can't come back in any capacity. I think in the statement, it also says that they feel that he's, from a legal standpoint, they don't feel he's guilty of anything that he's been charged of. So from a factual standpoint, he hasn't got a criminal record. He's been arrested. He hasn't been to court. So the only thing that stopped Manchester United bringing this player back was public image. That's literally it. That's literally the only thing that stopped him coming back. So if he goes away and says he's improved as a person, he's a family man now, the club have left it open for his return. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not.
I can't see that.
Well,
I can't see that myself.
Well, we don't know, do we? Like,
yeah. I mean, no.
I think they could have quite easily released him, terminated his contract, paid him up. If they wanted him to leave, they could have said he's up for sale. They could have done anything today to signify that they didn't want this player long term. All they've said is he won't play for Man United, and no one knows how long that's for. And they've purely backtracked on that statement is because it was leaked that they were going to bring him back, and they've reacted to that. And they've had to react quickly because everyone was getting impatient. Everyone thought he was going to come back. There was a lot of uproar in the public. A lot of people were saying, what's happening with Mason Greenwood? The fans were even getting annoyed from a sporting perspective. Like, well, if he's going to come back, just bring him back. We need a striker. Yeah. So there's so many messages. Yeah, I think the Ten Hag was in the same boat as well. Like, I've wanted 2 centre forwards. You've told me this forward's coming back. What's happening? I think everyone needed to know. And I think the club have now released this statement to just sort of batten down the hatches a little bit. And I think they've done it in the most, like, not disgusting way. I don't want to say it like that, but I just think they've just not covered themselves.
Unprofessional.
Yeah, unprofessional. They've just given themselves more work to do now. Like,
yeah,
to me,
naive, unprofessional. Like you say, this should have been sorted one way or the other on the 1st of June, shouldn't it?
Should have been put to bed, yeah. Like you said, you could have done the investigation from February. I'm sure they would have known by June. Well, in fact, I'm going to change that. By June, they knew they wanted to reintegrate him. They were just picking the right time because the investigation was done. We all knew they wanted to bring him back. They knew that. That's why they probably haven't bought another forward up until this point, because they knew up until last week they planned to bring him back, and now they've had to do a massive U-turn and batten down the hatches, and they think that this is going to put it to bed. But I think it's left more questions than answers, to be honest with you.
Obviously, you haven't got all the answers, but I'm still going to ask you anyway, because it's just your opinion. Why now, then? Do you think because Man United have had a struggled start to the season? Most definitely.
Yeah, I think that's a huge factor. Yeah, because like you said, at the end of the day, it's a football club, and Ten Hag is under pressure to deliver results and performances, and he's been probably banging on the door saying, if this player's not coming back, I want a centre forward. Like, at the end of the day, the legalities of the case isn't anything to do with the manager, unfortunately. This is a case that's happened well before he joined the football club. I feel a little bit sorry for him that he's being dragged into it. It's got nothing to do with him. And he's probably felt he's been dealt not a bad hand, but like if he thinks this player's going to be coming back for the last 90 days and then all of a sudden in the next week you're like, oh no, he's not coming back now, and we might not have time to get you a striker, he's going to be fuming. Like, of course he is. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's why they had to do something now. But in terms of the general timing by the club, I've already stated, I agree. I think it's very peculiar. I think one way or another, they should have announced whether he was coming back or not very early into pre-season, within the first 2 weeks of pre-season, so everyone knew what was happening, and then we could have acted from there.
The thing is, I've been reading the Athletic article on it today, and apparently there was employees of Manchester United threatening to quit their jobs or go on strike if he come back. So it's like from every angle, it's like they dipped their toe in the water and seen what the public reaction was like outside. Politicians have been talking about it. Obviously, like I just said, club insiders, employees, but even Countdown's Rachel Riley said she'll never support Manchester United ever again. I'm not sure how big a loss she would be as a fan, but right, that's enough of the serious stuff. Erik Ten Hag under pressure after 2 games of the season.
Yeah, definitely.
What happened Saturday night, Trav? I only watched the highlights, but from what I seen in the highlights, Rashford was so wasteful. That Rabona flick from Bruno, I don't care if you prefer it on the left wing. He scored enough goals in his time that he has got to be scoring that header.
Yeah.
It was on a plate for him. And then the header from Bruno afterwards. But Spurs looked really good. Man United looked at 6s and 7s. Casemiro looked like he was in a tumble dryer yet again. What has gone wrong, Travis? And what can Ten Hag do to fix this? Are we talking transfer window still?
Oh, well, where do I start, really?
Let it out, brother. Let it out.
Well, where do I... No, seriously, where do I start, like, in terms of what's gone wrong? Like, in the first 2 games, they've been abysmal. They have been abysmal, both performances. If I concentrate on Spurs, like, the first half an hour of the Spurs game, or, well, I'd say the first 10 to 15 minutes, Spurs started the game really fast, came out. United, after that, up until half-time, did more or less dominate the game. We were on top. I know Spurs had a couple of chances towards the end of the first half. But like you said, we had the clear-cut chances. We were doing okay in the game. It was pretty positive at that point. The second half was the total opposite. And we've seen certain players in this team shrink under pressure, shirk responsibility, not be up for the fight. So I think there's elements of that mental side to these players that under pressure and when the chips are down, that they don't respond to that sort of adversity. But for me, it's the simple fact that Erik Ten Hag's gone in with a method and a way of playing that he played at Ajax. And I think he's got to make some adjustments to both the actual tactical approach and some of the players that he decides to go forward within this squad. And the biggest thing I could do is start smashing into individuals. Like, I'm dying to do that, like your Mason Mounts and stuff. Like, I really would. Like, I really would want to do that, and I will come on to that. But I do think the bigger issue is with Ten Hag and the way he's setting us up. Like, the shape out of possession when the ball breaks down high up the pitch. We've literally got 6 players ahead of the ball. You're not going to win any football match doing that. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter whether you've got Zinedine Zidane, Makelele, and Redondo in midfield. If they're all in the box, when you're attacking and the ball breaks down, none of them are getting back. So there's a lack of discipline. I'm worried that Ten Hag's like not losing the dressing room, but I'm just worried that, like, are there signs that a couple of the players aren't fully buying into the methods? Is Ten Hag sort of second guessing himself now as to what way he wants to play? So it is a huge concern. And like you said, the recruitment can make or break a manager. And the recruitment has been...
It absolutely does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It absolutely makes or breaks every and any manager. And we went through it on the group chat today. This is virtually Ten Hag's team now, isn't it? The only players he hasn't bought himself
Is in Rashford, Bruno,
right
and
back.
Varane places.
Yeah, right back, centre back Varane, Bruno in midfield, and then Rashford up front.
But he's chose to sign Rashford and Bruno, so you can't even really count them. He wants them as part of the squad. He's made one of them captain, the other one he's given a big bumper contract for the next 5 to 6 years. Do you know what I mean? They're the players he wants to take forward as part of his team. So really, all you're looking at is a right back that he's not really bought. Varane's still top drawer and been probably our best player this season, along with Onana. So to me, there's enough there in that squad and that starting lineup to be producing better performances than what we've been seeing. So he's massively culpable for the performances that we've seen so far. But in terms of individuals, I could reel off 8: Mount, Bruno's ball retention, Rashford as a striker, Paul, Anthony non-existent, Martinez come back from his broken foot, looked awful, looked way off it, like just don't look fit. Like Luke Shaw and Wan-Bissaka, they can't invert as fullbacks. But even when you do, you still expect a minimum level of effort from a Manchester United player. And I'm just not seeing it. So it's extremely worrying times, man. Extremely.
So it's obvious that Ten Hag's going for a 4-3-3 now, away from the 4-2-3-1. But it's hard to say he hasn't got the personnel to do it or his vision, implement his vision. But if you're playing 4-3-3, it is his team, isn't it?
Yeah.
Casemiro in the anchor at number 6, and he just looks, like I say, he looks seasick in there on his own.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not just like the defensive side of it, Scott. It's the offensive as well. So like with the 4-3-3, the 2 and number 8s are really, really high. It means that we've basically got to play out with Varane, Wan-Bissaka, and Casemiro. And Casemiro isn't the best at receiving the ball from the back 4 or from Onana with his back to goal and making things happen. He's not very press resistant. You don't like playing little balls around the corner or anything like that and starting attacks. It's not his game. It's not what he's in the team to do. So from that perspective, you're right in the sense of Casemiro not being the right signing, because the way that Ten Hag wants to play now and what he's displaying doesn't suit Casemiro at all. He's basically being asked to start like attacks from deep. He's used to Kroos and Modric picking the ball up from the back line and being quarterbacks. Do you know what I mean? That's what he's used to. He's used to them 2 players getting the ball and spraying it about everywhere. And that's what he was used to a little bit more last season with Eriksen dropping in and making it happen. And Eriksen now is a thing of the past. But we can't just keep buying midfielders. If we buy Amrabat, he would have bought 4 midfielders since he's joined the club. He's not even been there 2 years. Do you know what I mean? That's nearly 200 million on midfielders. Like, how many more midfielders do the fans want us to bring in? It's like we've been linked with Gravenberch today. It's just midfielder bingo. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be just somebody else soon. Like, I'm just sick of like all these names getting linked. They're looking dead. And then it's like, we just buy another midfielder. That isn't the solution. There's got to be a system that players fit into.
When is McTominay going to get a reprieve?
I don't know, mate.
He's got to watch our podcast on Saturday morning. He's got to get McTominay back in there to help Casemiro out. It will bring so much balance to this team at the minute.
He must be sitting there thinking, how can I not get a game? Like, I'm seeing Sarr for Spurs. Sarr was 15 million they picked him up from the French league. I think he was there in the academy and stuff or whatever. He was there as a youngster, but this is his first season in the team, and he's running around, smashing into everyone, winning balls, winning tackles, going box to box. Him and Basuma just running the game. And it's like, we're just crying out for that in the middle of the park. I don't care whether it's Bruno or Mount who gets dropped, but one of them has to get dropped on Saturday. There has to. And we have to change it up without a shadow of a doubt.
Tagaba Misitafa's joined it. Why Greenwood not playing?
Where do we start on that, Tagaba, mate? Like, he's not. I don't think he's going to be playing for Man United for a long time, if ever again. But yeah, it's looking like he could have played his last game in a United shirt. I don't know if he's going to be returning, but it remains to be seen. I'm still slightly skeptical, but it's not going to be for a long time, Tagaba.
Bruno is captain. Teach me, Travis.
Yeah,
I just don't get it. I don't get it. He's not a leader. When the chips are down, and when you think of some of the great captains Man United have had, Erik Cantona, Roy Keane, proper leaders, Brian Robson back in the day. Bruno is just not a captain when the chips are down. He's not going to lead the team. I don't get it. Is Ten Hag messed up again? Not only is he messed up a few transfers, but he's got to be looking at someone like Martinez for captain or Varane, surely.
I don't think Varane's fit enough, doesn't play enough games. I think to be a club captain anyway. Like, I think leading by example is somebody that you can rely on, somebody that's already always there. I think that's one of the characteristics of being a captain. Bruno Fernandes definitely divides opinion in a few ways. I think he's got undoubted talent, but he just can't curb it all the time. Like you said, he does lack discipline. He's quite erratic. Like, he just chases lost causes. He's one of those players that sometimes you think he does it because he's trying to please the fans. I want to make them look like I'm putting in effort. So I'll press a ball that I know I'm not going to get. Do you know one of them players? You've played with him before, haven't you? Like, I'm just going to press. You know,
that's what I was like. Pretend I'm going for it.
Yeah, Bruno's that guy. He is that guy. I'm not going to get there, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to run in that direction and mess the whole press up just so it looks like I'm doing something and the fans will love me. He's one of them. And it typified that actually in his post-match interview, because he was like, when they asked him about the penalty decision, and do you know how John Moss on the team got demoted for the games at the weekend because of the decision against Wolves? He said, "Oh, I'll be there waiting for them after the weekend's games when they make the decision so they can do a full explanation and let's see if these referees get dropped." So that to me just displays petulance, like he's getting involved in stuff that he just doesn't need to get involved in. Like, the end of the day, we've lost the game 2-0, played terribly. There was nothing that we could have taken positively from the game. And instead of focusing on that and how we can bounce back at a team, he's getting involved in petty little arguments. So that's the side of him I don't like. There's a lot of things I do like about Bruno Fernandes when he's on his game, but he can lose focus. And like you said, that doesn't always strike me as captain material.
He's a pantomime villain to us rival fans, isn't he? Obviously, I love to hate him, and most other rival fans too. Rasmus Højlund, is it too early to say that it's so much pressure on his young shoulders? Can't wait to get him back to fitness to save your season. Can you say that after 2 games and well, you've won one of them? But what pressure on his shoulders to get him fit in the centre and get Rashford on the left to replace Garnacho, who's got lots of tricks but no end product.
Do you know what the mad thing is though, Scott? Like, we're in such a desperate situation at centre forward. He literally can't do any worse than what we've got. Like, last season, we bought in Weghorst and he was terrible, absolutely terrible. But at least what it did is 2 things. Is it gave us half a focal point. And the second thing is it meant Rashford could play on the left. So for me, Rasmus coming in only benefits all the players around him as well as himself. And I think the quicker we get him back, the better. I think he's going to be good. I'm not out here saying he's going to score 20 goals this season. I don't know enough about him. But I know what his attributes are like. Whether he can fit into the Premier League, I'm hoping so, that he can slot straight in. But there's still a lot of dynamics that we need to sort out in this team to really get the best out of him. But one thing Ten Hag is massive on is the pressing element. And he is a pressing machine. Statistically, he is a pressing machine. He likes to set the press. The press all goes through him. So I'm intrigued to see how he helps us from a defensive standpoint, because I know Rashford can't do that from centre forward.
When is he back? Any word?
He's in training.
He might be on the bench, didn't you, against Spurs? And he wasn't, was he?
No, there's rumours that he might be on the bench this Saturday against Nottingham Forest. So I hope so. But I just think, I mean, you're probably going to come on to it, but I wouldn't throw him straight in. But I think we've got to make some changes to the lineup this weekend. I think we're desperate for change.
Yeah, I was going to say to you, at what point do you throw him on and almost hang him out to dry? Because is Ten Hag got the luxury of trying to blood him into his new team in a new league?
See, I think Martial's been on the bench for the first 2 games of the season. I would start him because at the end of the day, if you get 60 minutes out of Martial, it's going to be better than 90 of Rash up top. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, you know, he's going to get injured anyway. So you'd rather him try and play 60 and get injured than just come on for 10 at the end and get injured. Do you know what I mean? You just start the guy. Like, what use is he on the bench? If he's on the bench, he's not playing. And if he's playing, he's going to get injured. So you might as well just not delay the inevitable. Get him up front, give us a focal point for 60 minutes and just go from there.
Then get injured.
Then get injured. But I would start Martial this weekend. I would start Sancho this weekend. I'd change Anthony. I'd put Rashford back on the left. McTominay would be in next to Casemiro. Bruno would keep his original place. And then I'd keep the back line as it is. But like, Wan-Bissaka probably doesn't deserve to be dropped. He's been one of our better players. So until he starts messing up, then I would probably stick with the back 5 as it is. But yeah, I'd make a few changes, but it's more about the system for me. But yeah, I'm hoping Højlund is on the bench this weekend.
How long are we going to take before we admit Anthony's a flop? Is it coming? Is it in the post?
Nah. The reason I say that is because, look, don't get me wrong, he makes some poor decisions on the ball, like under no pressure. But because we've not got a striker and we're not linking up and there's not the right types of runs in and around him, he's not one of them players that's just going to blitz you down the line. He's not Saka, he's not a Martinelli, he's not Salah, he's not got that kind of direct pace and that aggressive running style. He's more of an intricate, likes to link little 1-2s and stuff. He needs a centre forward to play off. He really does. And he needs some movement away from him. Like, if you notice, as bad as he's been, if you notice and watch Anthony, he always has 2 players to take on all the time. Like, the winger doubles up on him. They don't leave him 1v1 a lot because they know he's quite tricky and he's quite dangerous. So I think opposition teams use that as a tactic. Double up on him, he'll always go backwards. And that's why a lot of people think that he passes back and he passes inside a lot, because he does. He can't take on 2 players all the time, but he needs players in close proximity so he can do combinations. I think he'll be okay. He might not hit the heights. He's certainly not worth the transfer fee we paid for him at all. So yeah, he's still under pressure to fulfill that price tag for me, definitely. But I wouldn't say he's a flop just yet.
He was so unlucky hitting the post as well, wasn't he? Just after Spurs went 1-0 up.
Yeah.
Obviously, if that goes in, it's all different, isn't it? And you're all of a sudden saying that he's had a strong start to the season. Wan-Bissaka Obi. I like the name. I like it. Obi Wan-Bissaka. What is happening? I don't know, mate. You tell me. You're new to the channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're new to the channel.
Wan-Bissaka. I like that name. I'm a big fan of that.
Greenwood, we need him back. It's looking very unlikely. Wan-Bissaka. We mentioned it earlier in the stream. I can't see a way back from him now. It looks like Man United are trying to cut ties with him, and his time at Old Trafford is all but over. I don't know if it's going to be a case for the solicitors. I don't know if they're going to find a team abroad that would take him. Trav reckons maybe on loan and see what happens. I think they might release him on a free and just totally wash their hands of him, but it's not looking good. And we said right at the top of the stream, there's no winners out of this, only losers. Greenwood's losing, Man United are losing, the Man United fans are losing, Greenwood's new fiance is losing, or her family, his family. It's just horrendous. It's horrendous for everyone. Travis, obviously it's your podcast, it's my podcast, and we can say what we want, and I need you to be brave, okay?
Yeah.
I've already said Darwin Núñez is a flop, and I'm going to stand by that and see what happens in the next 9 months of the season. So over to you. Ten Hag out?
No.
Not yet.
No, not yet. No, he's got a lot of work to do. So the lowdown on Ten Hag for me is that I don't want any excuses created for him. We need a director of football, that's evident. But because we haven't got a director of football, these last 2 seasons, we have gone with the signings Ten Hag wants. And to me, what's come to the surface is that it's very evident he needs help on how to build a team, because at Ajax, the teams were built for him. The league was far inferior. Ajax always win the league. He was in a position of comfort. This is massively out his comfort zone. This is a test for him. He's stuck to what he knows, and he's obviously going to do that because this is the methods that have brought him success. But the Premier League's a different animal, and he's finding out very, very quickly. So yeah, not out yet, but he's under pressure.
Is he going to get any more money to spend this window? Surely not. Surely it's sell to buy now.
He'll get one or two over the line. He will. We've been, obviously, the Amrabat links rumbled on. We've been linked with Gravenberch today. He's from
even if Maguire and McTominay, Martial, even if none of them leave.
Yeah, we'll panic buy. We will. 100% United standard. That's standard United, mate.
I think Liverpool will be joining you on the panic buy and supermarket sweep trolley dash for the first summer in a long while. Well, I don't know. We signed Arthur Mello last summer, didn't we?
That's what we'll get. Big inflatable donuts, and we'll rip off the label and we'll just see what players underneath, mate. That's what we're gonna do, man. But yeah, we'll panic buy. One or two will come in, shut the fans up for a bit, couple of shiny new toys, run a few results, everything will be hunky-dory again, and then we'll play at Anfield or City away, get slapped up, and then we'll be back down to earth again, brother. I know how this club's worked. Been doing it for 10 years. Been doing it for 10 years.
What a podcast that'll be. I'll be there with receipts if that happens, if we slap you 7-0 again. Wan Bissaka says, is he going on loan? We don't know, brother. Everyone's just waiting to see. Everyone's going to be on the edge of their seat to find out what happens. I think it would be cheeky if Man United say they don't want him anymore or he's not welcome, whatever you want to say. He won't play for Man United again. Surely, to me, they should be releasing him on a free then. They can't command a fee, but it's all to be decided. No one knows. Ten Hag will still do better. That's the hope, mate. I know Travis, who's joining me right now, hopes that he'll do better, but no one knows. We're only 2 games into the season, Travis. You've won one and lost one. I mean, it's not all doom and gloom. You could be Chelsea. You could have spent £1 billion and have 1 point on the board from 2 games. Yeah. It looks like they're making another pig's ear of it yet again. Things you love to see. Cheers for joining me. If anyone's made it this far, there's still 7 people watching. Really appreciate it, guys. Don't forget to hit that like and the subscribe if you're new to the channel. Me and Trav will be back when something big pops off in the footballing world over the next couple of days, I'm sure. But just for now, we're going to watch Monday Night Football, Trav. You all over that?
Yeah, I'm all over it. Yes, mate.
Nice one. Right, cheers, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
Peace.
Cheers, Trav.
Header. But Gerrard! Oh, you beauty! What a